morning and thank you for being here this morning. So the topic of discussion that we will be doing today is to talk about local perspectives and experiences, interlinkages between religious fundamentalism and sexual and reproductive health and rights in the global south. So this side event aims to explore the influence on and interlinkages between religious fundamentalism and or extremism and extreme interpretation of religion on women's rights and SRHR. The idea behind this side event is to inform regional and global processes as well as to discuss strategies for building a more progressive interpretation of religion and how this can inform the various processes. We very strongly believe that CSW presents an important opportunity for us to showcase this work that Arrow and partners, which we will talk about in a little while, in order to engage with the different stakeholders, inform discourses, and jointly strategize to counter the effects posed by the narrow interpretations of religion. So over the past 2 years, Arrow, for those of you who have not heard of Arrow, we are the Asia Pacific Resource and Research Center for Women. We have been working with 10 national partners, 4 of whom are here with us this morning, located in the Global South, to build an evidence base on the interlinkages and to engage in advocacy to counter the influence of extreme views on ensuring sexual reproductive health and rights for all. So including engaging in efforts to strengthen alliances between faith and non-faith groups in the region. Just before I start, I just want to give you a little bit of context in what we define as religious extremism. So it is a definition that also is shared by another partner organization that works on this issue, AVID, is that the rigid interpretation of religion that are forced upon others using social or economic cohesion, laws, intolerance or violence. It is accompanied by non-fluid definitions of culture, religion, nationalism, ethnicity, or sect, which move citizens into exclusionary, patriarchy, and intolerant communities. That is how we have defined it in our work. And then on fundamentalism, we think of it as the use of religion by certain political and religious leaders, institutions, and parties to legitimize as divine. And when it gets problematic, it's that it's not changeable or challengeable, the authoritarian political powers, and to essentialize social contract. With that, I will very briefly take you through what Arrow's position is on religious fundamentalism and extremism, and then we will allow our national partners to share with you the work that they have done in their local contexts. So I think the overarching point that we want to make is that in nearly every country, women and men are routinely denied their reproductive and sexual rights under the pretext of religious beliefs and cultural and traditional practices. At national and international levels, conservative views are influencing various processes, including the UN processes, and the fact that we need to work across religious and non-religious divides to ensure human rights, SRHR, and empowerment of women. So very briefly, you see, to have a discourse on religious fundamentalism, it could take us hours. But just to kind of put it in a nutshell, so that we all are on the same page on it, we understand that most religious frameworks reiterate the complementary of the sexes and not equality of the sexes. And what happens due to this doctrine is the fact that men usually have space and authority both in civil, political, and cultural institutions. That's one side of it. And then the other doctrine focuses on the sanctity of human life and human dignity. And this, on its very extreme side, has very often denied rights to women, especially the right to safe abortion and the right to contraception. So fundamentalist groups are gaining power to influence social norms, international institutions, national laws and policies. In our part of the region, some countries have this influence has always been there. You will hear more about this when our national partner from the Philippines discusses this. But in the case of the Philippines, where the Catholic Church has always been very strong and fundamental in influencing national policies. But it is also a largely new phenomena in a lot of countries. For example, in Muslim majority countries such as Malaysia and Indonesia, who are now the centrist secular parties have become more right-wing, and they tend to flash their religious credentials, particularly in the area of women's bodily autonomy and what they consider to be morality. But our stand is that individuals have the right to interpret for themselves what is required of them through conscience and ijtihad to determine individual right and wrong. And these arguments are very useful to us, especially in the field of SRHR and in a world where religious fundamentalism often applies selectivity of doctrines. So then the question of why SRHR, why is it that we try to make this linkage between SRHR and the rise in religious fundamentalism? Because it's central to gender equality, women's empowerment, and to achieve sustainable development. So we need to recognize that a woman's body is hers. She's a human being and a citizen of the state in her own right, with rights and capacity to exercise these rights. So individuals must be free to decide on sexuality and reproduction, free from harm, coercion, and violence, and have bodily integrity to do all the above. So the ability and agency to decide what to do with our bodies is as important as, and very often overlooked, but very closely interlinked with achieving other developmental goals such as poverty, eradication of poverty, education, employment, and political participation. So state obligations play a crucial and substantive role in ensuring that these rights are respected, protected, and fulfilled. So again, why is this angle important? Why is it that we are trying to make this linkage? Because in an everyday life of a woman is affecting women's realities and strengthening the achievement of human rights, gender equality, and women empowerment. The SDGs will not be achieved if we do not consider how this is affecting women, their well-being, and achievement of SRHR. Increasing influence on state policies and processes that are limiting human rights, SRHR, and increasing inequality and discrimination. So one of the experiences that Arrow has had in this area is the CEDAW experience. We have used the human rights mechanism to counter the rise in religious fundamentalism. We need to vocalize this linkage and call for greater accountability by state parties in reporting and national level action. So we also need local level advocacy, which again, our national partners will talk to you in a little while, amongst women's group in reporting and informing the CEDAW committee. We need concrete country-based evidence and analysis and inclusion of evidence in reporting. That is one of the thrusts of the religious fundamentalism work that's being done by Arrow. We all know about this linkage, but there's very little evidence out there what these linkages are and how strongly are these linked and what are the repercussions. So one of the main idea behind the work that Arrow is doing is trying to establish this evidence-based analysis. So we need to also call for general recommendations and call for the removal of legal and policy barriers in concluding observations. So how do we take this forward? We need to recognize that religious arguments are used to limit women's rights, including SRHR by families, communities, and government in multiple spaces, even when progressive interpretations exist. So civil society needs to devise ways to act and collaborate from a human rights framework for those countries who identify as secular, and from progressive religious interpretation for those countries who operate from religious laws. Now, this is another thing that Arrow has identified to be very important, where we will not be able to use the same framework for every country due to how historically these countries have evolved. So call for the removal of legal and policy barriers influenced by religion and upholding of international obligation and standards without reservations. Now, a lot of times this commitments to, like for example, CEDAW or ICPD comes with reservations that suit the country. And we need to ensure that these reservations need to be, it should not be allowed. Information and education, as well as creating spaces for progressive use. Civil society has a role to play, and the various spaces can be used, including CSW and CEDAW. So just to take this further, because this is the work that Arrow does at the regional level. But I will now then pass you on to our national partners who will talk to you in greater detail about the country context of what is happening in their countries and what they have done so far about it. So on that note, the first speaker is Fadoua Bakhadda from Morocco. She's a health economist and she is with the Morocco Family Planning Association. Now, the Morocco Family Planning Association, or MFPA, has been around from 1971 within a public utility status and has become part of the International Planned Parenthood Federation since 1972. They have 65 clinics and 6 youth-friendly SRH services in the country. They cover almost 75% of Morocco in service provision and publish various research, and 4 of them are related to abortion. I call upon Fadoua. Maybe I can just pass the mic to you, and I'll help you with them.
Good morning, everyone.
Bonjour. Sabah.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as it was. Hello.
Is that?
Did it come off?
Hello.
Yeah.
It's fine. So, as it was introduced by my colleague, the Moroccan family planning is now on its 4th research on abortion, which is very exciting and interesting to share. So, let's start just with the Moroccan context of sexual and reproductive health rights. The failure rate of contraception is almost 27%, which is very high for our country. Only 25% of unwanted pregnancies is among married women. All unwanted pregnancies, the majority of them are among adolescents and youth. The mortality maternal rate is almost 112 rate among 1,000 new births. We didn't even attain what was fixed by the Millennium Goals that were about 231,000 new births. In Morocco, abortion is forbidden by law unless the life and the health of the mother are endangered. Last research made about youth and adolescents in Morocco shows that there is a period of unsafe sexual practices of almost 15 years between the first sexual practices that was held about 18 years for the girls, 16 years for boys, and the first age of marriage for girls was about 20 years, and for boys was about 35 years. So those 15 years of sexual practices was really unsafe practices with no contraception offering. When it comes to religion fundamentalism and sexual and reproductive health rights in Morocco, I'm just gonna give a brief for the ones who don't know Morocco. Morocco is under the Maliki doctrine within Islamic religion, and the Maliki school of jurisprudence relies the Quran and Hadith as primary sources. Sexual behaviors among non-married persons is forbidden by religion and penal code that states that both sexually active persons should go to jail if they are not under marriage union. Islam forbids abortion once the soul is injected into the fetus because no one has the right to take the life of anyone without concrete reason. By the way, the Maliki doctrine is the most conservative doctrine within Islam. In a number of authentic hadiths which are detailed the different stages of embryonic development, our Prophet said that the soul is breathed into the fetus at the end of the 4th month of pregnancy, which is 120 days. So our first research about abortion was mainly related to abortion and religious fundamentalism. We focused more on the abortion law that exists in 1920 when Morocco was under the French protectorate. What we found that since that time, our law about abortion never changed. Why? It was taken from the French penal code and never changed, so it's the French Catholic who decided about it, not our Moroccan Islamic council. Many Muslim doctrines allow abortion for social and health reasons. Abortion needs to be done before the soul is injected in the fetus. Almost 17 Muslim countries allow abortion for specific reasons, either to preserve the life, the health of the woman, in case of rape, in case of incest, and in case of fetus malformation. Abortion is permitted for everyone in Tunisia and Turkey, but it's not the same thing for Morocco. Emergency contraception is not affordable in public health institutions. We have the only institution in Morocco that offers such products. Illegality of abortion opens the door to unsafe and clandestine abortion, a heavy cost for the health system, especially when it comes to mortality rates. I will go briefly to some findings that I thought they are interesting to share with you within religious fundamentalism. So according to some doctrines, which is the Hanafi and the Shafi'i, so those doctrines are the less conservative ones. If the continuation of pregnancy will have permanent negative consequences on the health of the mother, abortion is tolerated based on the rule, when you are forced to choose between two evils, you must choose the lesser one. In case of rape and incest, we have these Hanafi doctrines who say that abortion could be tolerated in case of rape and incest because this is the only way to preserve our descendants and get good progeny that will serve Muslim community and avoid fitna. Fitna, by the way, it's when people are starting doing some things that they are not willing to do, but because of obligation and because of psychological demand and of cultural consequences. We do have one of our religious leaders in the Arab world, which is Muhammad Sayyid Tantawi, a girl who said any girl or woman rape victim has the right in Islam to have an abortion at any time and it would not have a sin. So those are some research findings that we find interesting to share. When it comes to health reasons, we could say that according to Ijtihad and canonical rules, demonstrated that if abortion is done because of the mother's physical health reasons is related, assuming that data and with reference to the definition of concept of the World Health Organization, state of complete physical and mental and social health, the concept of extreme necessity is essential in the abortion debate. It must not remain limited to the physical health of the mother. It could be expanded to maternal mental health. So here we came up that in the definition of abortion, when we go to the Moroccan Penal Code, we are saying that abortion is forbidden unless it has to preserve the life and the health of the lady. What we are advocating for is just to get the Health Organization definition, because when we talk about health, we can include physical, mental, and social aspects. Abortions in case of fetal genetic stain. So a fatwa issued by the Islamic Fiqh Committee of the Muslim World League in 1990 states that if it is established with certainty by a committee of physicians trusted that the fetus is malformed and this is defect will be treated later by experts. Abortion is permitted with parental consent and within 120 days of pregnancy. So why do we have to make a lady suffer knowing that that her baby will die anymore once she will be delivering because of some genetical and fetal malformation? So as conclusions, we could say that international studies show that countries with restrictive abortion legislations actually have higher rates of abortion and abortion complications. Prevention has been stated the most useful way. There is a great diversity of opinion with Islam, but the general rule is a ban, with certain exceptions, and never after the fourth month, as Hadith says, the truth is breathed into the fetus after this time. The majority of modern scholars argue for allowing abortion in cases of real need up until the fourth month of pregnancy, in case of life, mortality, rape, incest, fetal malformation. What could we recommend? Whenever there is a law affording abortion to preserve the health of the woman, health needs to be taken according to the law definition, including physical, mental, and social health. Restrictive abortion law will never end, and safe and clandestine abortion. Countries need to promote and focus on prevention more. Abortion needs to be done within 120 days according to Islam for Islamic countries. Safe abortion needs to be affordable in cases of incest and rape based on Hanafi doctrine. We need to preserve our descendants. What to advocate for? So I will just share a part of what we have done in 2015. So in February, we got a close meeting with our Minister of Health to share the study findings. In April, we got a national debate there on abortion, where the research findings were shared. In May 2015, a closed meeting with the National Council of Human Rights about the research findings at the Moroccan context regarding sexual reproductive health rights. His Majesty in April 2015, King Mohammed VI asked ministries, departments to come up with an abortion law amendment allowing abortion in case of rape, incest, and fetus malformation. In May 2015, MFPA held 2 conferences to share the research findings or hold with parliamentarians and journalists. From September to December, we initiated discussion with the religious Moroccan Council, judges, lawyers, to discuss the research findings and initiate reflection on the new law amendments. So here are some pictures and photos that we want to share about our advocacy ways of doing. So you can find that we have some relations within our Minister of Health discussing about abortion. We have a national debate within the Ministry of Health about abortions, and slogan about our day of advocacy with parliamentarians. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Fadoua. We will have a Q&A session at the end, so perhaps you can keep your questions in mind, and then once we're done with all the panelists, we will then open for Q&A. So moving on from Morocco, I will now pass to Rina Jimenez David, who is a columnist with the Philippine Daily Inquirer and is the chairperson of the National Women's Organization Filipina. She's been a member of the board of directors of Likhaan, our national partner in the Philippines, which is a community-based organization that provides reproductive health services and conducts national advocacy programs, especially in support of the responsible parenthood and reproductive health law in the Philippines. Rina?
Thank you. So I will now talk about the links between Catholic fundamentalism in the Philippines and the passage of the responsible parenthood and reproductive health law in the Philippines, which unfortunately is also facing problems in its implementation right now. As a background, the picture shows us, it's next slide.
Sorry, it's just taking a little longer.
Okay. The first slide, the first slide I will show you will be a scene from the biggest public maternity hospital in the Philippines. And from that picture, I think you can glean the high birth rate in the Philippines. But first of all, I think you need to understand that the majority of Filipinos are Roman Catholic and strongly identified with the church teachings, although most public opinion polls on reproductive health has shown that Filipinos believe family planning is important and that couples should be given the right to make decisions for themselves. The passage of the law in 2014 was delayed by a year by challenges before the Supreme Court, and now there are 2 existing challenges that still hamper the full implementation of the law. But This is in spite of the situation of reproductive health in the Philippines. As the picture shows you, there's a high maternal mortality rate. The total fertility rate is one of the highest in Asia. Adolescent fertility rate at 57. And the growth rate of new HIV cases at 48% is the highest in Asia. And as an indication, at the end of the Millennium Development Goals Assessment, the Philippines failed in its reproductive health goals. The Catholic Church in the Philippines is dominant, as I said, and a prominent player in the political, social, and cultural context. Views on women are quite conservative, and women are viewed as mothers, and childbearing is the primary goal of marriage. No divorce law, one of the, I think the only country in the world now. Abortion is considered a crime. Contraception is a grave sin. And natural family planning is the only accepted method of family planning by the church. There is even a constitutional provision that touches on abortion, and it goes that the family, as the basic autonomous social institution, shall equally protect, and the state is obligated to equally protect the life of the mother and the life of the unborn from conception. A constitutional provision that has been used time and again in the effort to derail the reproductive health law. Likhaan conducted a study on the role of religious fundamentalism in the Philippines. The key question asked us, how do Catholic fundamentalist teachings affect public policy? And aside from studies of the doctrine and the arguments raised during the passage of the law, there were also interviews with non-fundamentalist Catholics on how to mitigate the influence of the church. Now, how does the church impact on policy in the Philippines? Of course it does, very much so. Officials are intimidated by the church. Pastoral letters have been issued through the years decrying certain government policies, especially during the period immediately before the International Conference on Population. The ouster of the dictator Ferdinand Marcos and then a corrupt president, Joseph Estrada, was led by the church, and so politicians and officials are quite wary of crossing swords with the church. During the term of the previous president, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, which lasted for a decade from 2001 to 2010, natural family planning was the only form of family planning encouraged and promoted by the government. Right now, although the Supreme Court has said that the reproductive health law was not unconstitutional, there were 8 amendments, including a requirement for a written permission of parents for teenagers seeking reproductive advice and services. Who are the purveyors of fundamentalism? It's a mix of the Catholic Church, shown by the Catholic Bishops' Conference in the Philippines, conservative groups like Opus Dei, and also quasi-political organizations, especially party list groups that seek a seat in the House of Representatives. The picture shows officials of a pro-life party list cutting condoms in public as a way to demonstrate their objections to family planning. The interviews with the non-fundamentalist Catholics shows that there are diverse views on Catholicism and reproductive health. The interviews were conducted with a former health secretary, a doctor, an educator, a concerned Catholic laywoman, a Catholic nun, and a lawyer. They all agree that the church needs to revisit its views on women, family life, and marital relations. And also the RH supportive groups like Likhaan and C4RH is a group called Catholics for Reproductive Health, who directly challenge church authority and church pronouncements on reproductive health. The study presented some recommendations about the need for policymakers to be better aware of the issues surrounding sexual and reproductive health and rights, and right now we need to strengthen the commitment of the Commission on Human Rights, which is at present conducting a national inquiry into violations of the human rights of women, especially their sexual and reproductive health and rights, an effort which needs to be supported. Also, there is a need to strengthen the scope and capacity of the reproductive health movement, which Likhaan is leading in planning and organizing needs. There is a need to work with the media, especially to change attitudes regarding reproductive health. For example, that babies are gifts from God, the rights of women and couples, and the still very prevalent misconceptions about the impact of contraceptives on health. And alliance building efforts are now ongoing, and that in support of the Commission on Human Rights inquiry, there's a need to document concrete instances of rights violations and to popularize the stories of women on how Catholic fundamentalism has impacted on their lives and their futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rina. Okay. So moving on from the Philippines, I now invite Habbibun, who's an independent legal practitioner and freelance consultant, as well as a human rights lawyer. She's a member of Naripokkho, which is a membership-based women's activist organization based in Bangladesh, who have been working since 1983 for the advancement of women's rights and entitlement, as well as building resistance against violence and discrimination and injustice against women.
Thank you and good morning. Let me start with that's our slogan: the whole world is our battlefield, we women. So that's our key slogan, and especially for SRHR, our another slogan we call "It's my body, it's my rights." But every time it's been violated for many reasons. However, my focus will be this morning to young people and SRHR education. Let me start with some statistical information on what's happening in Bangladesh. And my previous speakers, what they said, especially Morocco and also Philippines, there are lots of similarity as well in Bangladesh context. Young people's SRHR in Bangladesh showed one third of total population are adolescent and young. Can I see from there? They make age 10 to 24. 64% women aged 20 to 24 are married before 18 years, and 2% women were married even before 11 years. Sorry, after once they at the age of 11 years. 47% adolescents who ever experienced physical and or sexual violence. Only 12.9% of women make their own HR decision, meaning how many children they want to have, when they want to marry, this sort of thing. Perinatal mortality rate 50 deaths per 1,000 pregnancies. Contraceptives use mostly pill. That goes to 27% for women, condom 6.5%, and for male, and sterilization for 1% for male, and for female is 4.6%. There are lots of statistical information in the website. If you just research on Bangladesh and the SRHR situation, you will get lots of findings from different research happening in Bangladesh. I'm now focusing interlinkages, religion's role in SRHR for especially for adolescent and women. Basically, Bangladesh, we have the country is Islam is the state religion, and predominantly Muslim. We 88% Muslim dominated country. Nevertheless, all the personal laws for Hindu, Muslim, Christian, other faith governed by their personal laws. Religious and the Hadith and Sunnah. So the sources of personal laws and the policies, greater policies for the country is based on religious. Therefore, it's easily understandable that every stage of people's life is governed by religion, mostly. Women are not at all equal to the man, especially when it comes to law of inheritance, the right to marry, right to divorce, right to have children, how many children, and the right to have guardianship. These are the things. Women cannot decide, as I said, how many children they are going to have, because they are not the natural guardian of their kids. Only the father is the natural guardian, and they are the only custodian. Therefore, given all this situation, and there are other information like violence, and especially on young women are suffering from different kind of violence, especially rape and sexual harassment. These are the things actually instigated us to do this study, especially how they are getting information and how about the service that are provided by the government to have their SRHR rights. And we thank Saro for assisting us to do this study. Our study objective was to identify linkages between religious extremism, inclusion of comprehensive SRH education in secondary and higher secondary curriculum and textbook. That is the beginning of formal education. But as you may aware, in Bangladesh we have a 99% enrollment rate at the primary level, but 75% still, probably percentage may vary, dropout rate when they finish the 5th grade. Therefore, only this formal education can reach very limited targeted people. That's the main problem we found during the study. Identify influences, factors related to delivery of the curriculum or the classroom setting. Determine recommendations targeted for relevant stakeholders for improving SRH education. There are lots of interesting findings, but I'll give you very little one. Those are very interesting. Like in the biology book, the text says the topic is on growth of sexual organs of boys, development of women's body, etc., etc. And these the issues, the topics were taken out in 2014 when the curriculum was revised by the government. So you can understand the attitude of the key stakeholders. Another interesting thing, physical and health education textbook, they have only HIV, AIDS, and etc. They're full of sports and physical exercise. So these are the interesting findings we found during our research. There is another most interesting and encouraging thing, I would say, that teaching, during teaching period, the teacher say touching, this is in the text, touching another bodies or something like that is really bad, and that's kind of sexual harassment. So teacher said to a student, especially girl student, you should cover or you should put veil on you. So these are the, you see in the textbook situation at the same time what's happening in the classroom. Whatever we have, they do not deliver in the classroom. They are very, very conservative and negative on these issues. Because they are reluctant, and also they have very limited knowledge how to handle these young boys or young girls. A boys' school and madrasa teachers, we focused madrasa medium and English and Bangla both. The teacher said reproductive health education is only for girls, not for boys. They don't need to learn about reproductive health and rights issue. A female teacher says education on sexual discourse often mislead and create unnecessary curiosity in teenagers, which causes rape and sexual harassment. That's teacher says, that attitude. So these are the things happening. Student is really our encouraging part. They said, I was very keen to learn about changing process of my body, but my teachers scold me and they shut up, you don't need to learn about this. And they staple the books and they say, read it in the home. Don't need to read it here in the classroom. So, and the male student, he was very upset. He said, I wanted to know about sperm and ejaculation, etc. And teacher says, you shut up. So these things are really, we found in the young group. They said, we want to know what's happening around my body, we want to know all of these reproductive issues and things, but as a visit other side. Therefore, there is a really need of focus on textbook, attitudinal change, teachers' capacity building. I'm not reading all of this because the title itself says what we want. In terms of conclusion and recommendation, there are lots of things to do. However, I'm focusing on advocacy, right-based law and policies. Unique and effective system of disseminating HRH information across the student, across the education medium, English, Bangla, whatever it is. Engaging and liaising with parents, teachers, journalists, civil society, and need to promote a critical dialogue, communicative pattern about Islam, other religion, SRH, and consistency with religious values. I'm sorry, I'm not very fluent. However, our strategies, regular interaction and communication, lobbying for inclusion of content and teaching methodology in the teaching guidebook, promoting SRH, there are lots of activity going on in Bangladesh, including regional and also international level. So we are planning to join the existing activities as well as the awareness campaign to promote critical dialogue about religion and SRH. Protection and promotion of human rights is our key activity, and we want to participate actively in country, regionally, and also internationally. And I personally attended CSW for 3rd times, and this is my 3rd time. I'm attending. Last 2 times I was representing Naripokkho for violence against women. So we are everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Habbibun. Moving on from Bangladesh, we will now hear from Dr. Balu, who is a social scientist and demographer by training, and he's also currently the Executive Director of Rural Women's Social Education Center, or in short, RUSAC, which is an organization working for women's health and reproductive rights in the southern state of Tamil Nadu in India. Balu?
Good morning to all. I am very happy to be here to present the research on role of religious fundamentalism in the implementation of comprehensive sexuality education program for young people in India. Before going to my presentations, I would like to introduce the context of India's country's SRHR context. So, as most of you all know about that, India is the 2nd most populous country in the world with a population of 1,210 million. 30% of the populations are in the age category 15 to 24 years, and 20% are adolescent, 10 to 19 years age group. So the age structure of population is very young. The proportion of young people is significantly high in India. So India has progress in many aspects on social economic development. Say for example, literacy rate has increased, total fertility rate also has come down, and life expectancy at birth has also increased over the years. But there are wide gaps in SRHR indicators, particularly young people's SRHR. They are poorly informed in sexual and reproductive health matters. According to the 2 national level studies conducted by the Government of India as well as the IIPS Mumbai, we found that the majority of the young people in India are poorly informed about their sexual and reproductive health and rights. For example, 30% of the married men and 50% of women below 30 years were not aware about the fact that women may get pregnant in a single sexual act. So the basic fact is not aware about 50% of the women. So the child marriage is very common in India, even though the Child Marriage Act was passed before independence in the 1930. So even today, child marriages are happening in rural areas. According to the UNICEF statistics, 40% of the world child brides in this age group of 20 to 24 years were from India. So, secondly, the arranged and endogamous marriage is very common. Arranged marriages. Large majority of the marriages in India are arranged by the families and relatives. So, then it's not based on the individual choice. So, the third part is the caste system in India is very strong. The caste is a social hierarchy, social stratification based on the Hindu religious mythology. So, intercaste marriages are rarely allowed. It is considered as a sin. So, according to the Indian Constitution, law, and the policy program and other things, marital rape is not considered as a rape. So, non-consensual sex among marital women is very high in India. Adolescent fertility rate is also still high, 25.6%. Maternal mortality rate is 178 as per 100,000 live births. We are still far behind the MTG targets for the year 2015. The unsafe abortion is also the most predominant cause of maternal death in India. Even though we have passed the act in 1971, abortion is legalized in India, but unsafe abortion continues to be the major cause of maternal mortality in India and also morbidity. Contraceptive prevalence has increased over the years, but the male involvement is very low. According to the statistics released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, almost 96% of the permanent contraceptive users were women, only 2% were men. So the third point is, the last one is about a wide range of contraceptive choices, that is permanent methods. Next to permanent methods, the temporary contraceptive methods are not available in the public health facilities. So it is a great burden for the married as well as the unmarried young people and single men and women. So India has signed a member of international treaties and agreements, starting from CEDA, CRC, ICPDPA, and also we are also reporting to the Millennium Development Goals. So in order to that, we have come up with various policies for promoting young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights. All these 4 policies talks about the information about sexual and reproductive rights will be provided to the young people. But it is on the paper, but there is a wide gap in the implementation of all these policies. The adolescent education program, we call it as Sexuality Education, CSE, was introduced in the adolescents for the Central Board of School Education, the National Level Board of School Education in the year 2006. Immediately after the introduction, there was a strong opposition from the 12 state governments, stating that it is against our culture, it is against our religious norms and other things. So immediately a parliamentary committee was appointed to review the content and also the whole program component. The committee consists of various political parties, academicians as well as educationists and also women's rights groups. So it took 2 years to complete the report. In the year 2009, the committee recommended to revise the CSE curriculum. Importantly, removal of many sections, stating that it is against the Indian culture point of arguments. Okay. So the research was mainly done at to capture the role of interreligious fundamentalism in affecting the implementation of CSE. So it has 2 major components: on the review of literature and also the field study in own state of Tamil Nadu. Right now I'm going to start with only the review of literature component. Basically, the review the content of parliamentary committee report on adolescent education program and the point of arguments and viewpoint expressed by the committee members and other key stakeholders in this group, and how it fit into the category of religious fundamentalism, and also the review the recent incidences of sexual rights violation that is happening across the country, mostly on moral policing and honor killing and other forms of violence infiltrated against the young people. So, for the first component, I have go through this detailed committee report. It is a large, lengthy report. I have taken some quotes from the parliamentary committee report and put forward the facts. So you can write some of these statements. I just put one or two. Sex education will bring condom dispensing machines and abortion clinic in our country, in our schools. These are emotional statements. There is no fact or empirical evidence on this. And also that the basic instinct like coitus needs not to be taught. Rather than control of this instinct should be the subject matter of education. It's the committee's views are expressed. Actually, the CSE did is an age of sexuality, but the other point, the first green one is about the famous educationist, and also he is in charge of National Council of Educational Research and Training. He expressed that acceptance of foreign funding for advocacy of the curriculum had hidden agenda by which the Western countries would impose their culture upon us and weaken the value system of country. Current sex education would strike the root of Gurusiya Parambara, that is student-teachers relationship. It will spoil the students-teachers relationships. These are the other course. So, based on this interactions with various groups and committees, the committee come up with the recommendation that the sex education should be stopped. It should be the content of the curriculum should be revised. So, actually the program was implemented with the support of National AIDS Control Organizations, Ministry of Health and Development, Ministry of Health and Resource and Development, Ministry of Human Resource and Development, and with the support of UNICEF. They repeatedly stated that it is sexuality education, but the parliamentary committee report the word sex education. They wanted to narrow down the content of the sexuality education program. So the committee's views were aligned with the Hindu right, that is Hindu right wing is the Hindu religious fundamentalist groups, ideologies. Members themselves believed in myths and misconceptions. Then third is a total ignorance of national policies and programs on SRHR among the members of the parliamentary committee. So the 4 policies that I mentioned earlier is in accordance with the international treaties and agreements, but the parliamentary committee is totally ignored about the national policies. The committee came with a strong recommendation that there should be no sex education in schools, removal of topics like sexual intercourse, arousal, masturbation, male and female anatomy. This is a core part of the sexuality education they recommended. Instead, they suggested to introduce moral and value-based educations and the history of great Jains. Okay. The second research question is about the reported incidences of sexual rights violation targeting young people in India. It is happening at a larger moment in recent years. So we have did an internet-based search on the keywords on moral policing, honor killing, and on Valentine's Day violences. So we found that there were targeted attacks on the young peoples and particularly on women on the basis of culture and religious attitude. There are threats of violences on Valentine's Day. It is also happening in an increasing world. The other point is honor killing of poor caste boys and girls is happening in it's a rare incident in southern parts of India, but it now becomes increasingly reported in the honor killing on the basis of caste, intercaste marriages. So the photographies of CCTV footage that I took from the last week, there was in the public place, a boy was murdered for marrying an upper caste girl. So based on these 2 research questions and research findings, we come to the conclusion that national policies and programs for young peoples were drafted in accordance with international treaties and agreements. Parliamentary committee report and its conclusion was a total setback to the sexual and reproductive rights of young people in India. It's totally contradictory with the existing policies and program documents. The arguments that rooted in arbitrary ideologies of culture, tradition, suppression of natural instincts, fear of Western invasion, and nationalism. The last point is the recent increasing instances of moral policing, honor killing is of a great concern. They do send a strong message to the young people, do's and don'ts, about selecting their friendship, life partner, what to wear and eat, their sexuality and reproductive rights. So based on these conclusions, we put forward 3 recommendations. It's important to educate among politicians and that is parliamentarian and politicians, religious leaders and also other stakeholders that sexuality education is not a sex education. It is an empowerment education for young people to protect their rights, health and well-being. But under the current political climate, the government is headed by the right-wing political party with the backup support. So it's difficult to work on this advocacy on this issue. The second recommendation is there is a common myth about sexuality education leads to experimentations. A cross-country study like experimentation control or before and after study is needed to disprove this theory. The last is very important recommendation. There is a strong need to form an alliance to generate resistance to the religious fundamentalism and restore the values enshrined in Indian Constitution. Freedom, equality, equity, no discrimination, secularism and democracy. These are all in the Indian Constitution rights to all rights. But we have to enforce them. We have to form an alliances to demand for this. So ROSEC is working on this aspect to form an alliances with like-minded groups. We have 2-3 rounds of consultation with them and sharing of our experiences and expertise on developing CSC and implementing it. Various states, in few states, the state governments are very cooperative to introduce this curriculum. So we are moving forward it. Thank you.
Thank you, Balu. So there we've heard about what's happening in these 4 countries. The scenarios may be different, the religious groups may be different, but the challenges are usually very common from one another. So we have about half an hour in which we would be able to take questions from the audience. It would be great if you can identify yourself and also which organization you're from, and then maybe we could take like 3 questions and then answer them and then get back to you. Is that okay? Yeah? Anyone?
Hi, my name is Stefano with the Center for Stefano Giannetti with the Center for Family and Human Rights. And I had a question with regards to the issue of, we would call it religious fundamentalism. I mean, I would suggest that maybe sometimes you would call it simply legitimate concerns of parents as well as educators about certain materials being inappropriate. How much work is being done to develop education standards also with regards to sex education that are sort of in line with traditions, cultures, and instead of, because the perception I get is that we're getting a package from up here at the normative level that's being pushed everywhere and it's being rejected everywhere. And you know, and how much backlash actually is there, and how much fundamentalism is there as a result of that? That in actual fact is going to be very problematic going forward. So I have a question about that, and then I also wanted to remark on the issue of abortion, because it was brought up here, that you know, going forward, I am 100% convinced the science is with us, the technology is with us. It's showing the humanity of the baby from the moment of conception. More and more people realize this. You know, we can't hide from the facts, and you know, the world will wake up one day and say, "What have we done?"
What is the question again?
I just wanted, this was a comment because we talked about abortion, but I just a question about the backlash, because you know, there's certainly parents all over the world think that children should learn the basic facts of sex, but then when you talk about sexuality and equate, you know, the morality, any kind of sexual activity, then parents start having a problem, and teachers.
Yeah.
So,
There's a question at the back.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please.
hi. I wonder if you could actually talk about the evidence
Can
about
you come a
the
little nearer?
value of comprehensive sexuality education.
I'm sorry, can you come a little nearer?
Sure. Yes, sorry. I was wondering if you could talk about the value of the evidence about the value of comprehensive sexuality education. I mean, I know about that evidence in the context of reducing HIV amongst young women and girls, but I know that there's other evidence as well, and in addition, perhaps you could talk about similar evidence about the safety of abortion and the importance of it for protecting women's lives.
Where are you from? Can you just
Sorry, I'm Susanna Freed. I'm from the U.S.
From?
The United States.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
I'm Zareen Babu from Morocco International. We have a chapter in Kodaikanal. And I've been working with relationships in schools. And we've realized that we need to go, the major issue, the stumbling blocks we come across is that at school level, which is where it's very important to enter into this kind of education for children, the minds of the children, first of all, are not thinking about themselves. They are the parent's child or the teacher's child, and the only thing they think of from kindergarten to 12 is marks. You cannot penetrate their minds. You cannot expect the teachers to help you to move forward in anything else, even in the primary section, even in the middle school section. So that's the mindset we're talking about. So do you have any studies or any procedures that you have come up with as you're working in this field to change gradually? That point is fine, is to go along with the, everyone's so holding on to religion because you say something against religion and you're in a mess. So taking that into account, do you have any studies or any plans or any material that I could use, we could use in the club to change the mindset of the hierarchy from the management to the parents to reach the children?
Sorry?
We didn't hear that, what she said.
Oh, I think what she was talking about, particularly from the Indian context, is that the school system is structured in such a way where our students from primary to the secondary level are very much focused on academic excellence. So how then do we penetrate that into teaching them other things like CSE, for example, and changing mindsets? Maybe we will just try to answer these 3 questions and then we go to the next round. Do you want to start?
You have it.
Actually, RUSA has been working with schools and colleges for a long time, about 30 years or so. So initially there were strong resistance from the Department of Education as well as the parents groups also. So gradually we introduced that life skills component, that's promoting the skills of young people in terms of coping with stress, empowering the skills on educational skills and also sports, and then we introduced the sexuality education program. So only once get to the familiarity with the school and parents, only we entered into the curricular streams. Currently we are implementing this program in one administrative block, about 25 middle schools, 8th standard students. So it's very difficult to enter, but once we get the familiarity, we can use that. But we have the material for young people, adolescent and director program, but we don't have any materials for meeting with the parents and education authorities.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, sure, definitely. We would like to share with you. Yeah, sure.
Well, all 3. Maybe I'm loud enough, no? All 3 questions were SRHR and education. In fact, no one is pushing us, in fact. Pushing and rejection, I don't think there is something coming from outside of the country. or outside of the region. It's the children. I told you, the young, very young children, age 12, school grade 6 or 7, she was asking, I want to know how changes my body, and who is going to teach me? My mom said, no, I'm shy to teach all of this, and I can't talk to my dad. So who is going to teach me? I came to my teacher, biology teacher. She said, no, it's tablet, it's very shameful, you read it at home. And listen, it's not coming to your exam, so you don't need to. So as a result, there are lots of other ways, the development, the revolution of media, it bringing all the information to young kids and different way, and that creates a lot of confusion. Therefore, you need really formal, simple way, educate them how your body gets changes, how you feel. One of my friends, let me give you an example. One of my friends, 14 years boy, was saying to his mom is really frank and free. He said, Mom, something happening with my penis. It doesn't happen to you. So why I am like this? Why I am like that? Why I am not like you? But he couldn't talk to his dad. That's the gap. That's the gap between parents and him. But who is going to teach this boy that this is happening because of your body changes? And it should be in your book. When you want to start, if it is whether you want to start at age of 10, 11, you can decide. You can assess the context. You can assess the situation. But the problem is when religious jumps into the situation and says, you don't need to know it because this is only reproduction is women's issue, for example. Or you should learn. One of the interesting findings we have from the madrasa people, they teach very well, very elaborately, because if you do not know, then you will do sin. Therefore, you should know what it is to prevent yourself from doing sin.
Right.
So isn't that interesting? It is. Thank you.
The recently passed reproductive health law in the Philippines includes a provision for what they call age-appropriate sexuality education. What I know is that the Department of Education right now is still testing modules for, but the law says it has to be given only to middle school age school children. But the problem is that as the religious identity gets into the picture, our Secretary of Education is a Catholic brother. And there was a proposal because of our sin taxes to provide free immunization to school children in public schools in the poorest cities and towns of the Philippines. And one of the immunization programs was the provision of a drug against to protect girls from developing cervical cancer. But the program was halted by the Secretary of Education, and when I asked him about it, he said because he had received complaints from several organizations saying that by giving young girls, as young as 9, actually was the recommendation, the vaccine against cervical cancer, it would be to encourage them to have early sex, etc., etc., etc. So that was where the intersection of, I think, the Secretary's religious orientation and the public health needs, because this was being promoted by the Department of Law. So we can see many instances in the Philippines where a religious ideology tends to interfere with the implementation of health or any other kind of policy which is deemed good for the public good.
I will go to unsafe abortion. So for the lady. So concerning unsafe abortion, I'm gonna talk about unsafe abortion and clandestine abortion because there is a difference. So I'm gonna talk about Moroccan case. It's amazing actually when you find that prostitution, for example, in Morocco, in the south of Morocco, pregnant women are more desired for prostitution than others. So it's, I think, psychological or cultural point of view. What we have, since abortion is illegal, we have a lot of clandestine methods of doing. So we made a survey, and we find that I think we are almost 80 methods of abortion. There are some ones that we could find sharing with our grandmoms, and there are new ones. But all of them, they are clandestine, which is automatically unsafe abortions. The second thing, since abortion is illegal in Morocco, our health public institutions are not equipped. So even if they have the right to do it, they don't have enough materials to do it, which brings us to unsafe abortion, because it's illegal. What you are saying, when you look to the World Health Organization sayings, the first cause of mortality is abortion in some places. Maybe I'm going to talk about developing countries because we are similar, especially when it comes to sexual reproductive health services. It's something that is not really that much valued. However, for other countries, there is no problem with it. Unsafe abortion is very common in Morocco. We have a lot of that, especially among teenagers and youth girls. We have also another aspect, is abandoned infants. So we have kids. Whenever the lady or the youth lady just delivered, she is leaving her baby. And this costs us a lot from social perspectives, from economic perspective, and so on. So, since there is a problem, why do we have to just say, oh, we will not share it, we will not talk about it? From economic perspective, it's costly. From social and cultural perspective, it's costly. From every aspect, we have to take it seriously. It's not a taboo anymore, and we have to be equipped for that, at least to save the life of ladies who just went for abortion. And now, hopefully, I hope when we will get when we get this rape and incest coming into law, we have to equip our health public institutions and also go for training for our medical doctors. When you go to the curricula for our doctors when they were just students, abortion is not taking that part. And this is something that we have to take off. Emergency pills, emergency contraception is not in our health public institution. Thank you.
Thank you. There were a few more questions. Can I? Yes, please.
Thank you very much for the presentations. My name is Patricia. I come from Uganda. I just wanted to find out from the panel if any engagement has been had with these religious fundamentalists, because I think part of the solution is in having conversations with them and maybe probably beginning to get some change agents. So some experiences on religious groups that you have engaged with and what some of the successes have been.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
So my name's Allison. I'm from Advocates for Youth. We're based in Washington, D.C. And first of all, I wanted to commend you on your work and the amazing work that you're doing in all of your different countries. And I wanted to ask you, how can we best utilize culture and personal real narratives to promote fact-based educational education about SRHR, specifically for youth?
I'm sorry, the first part?
The first part, how can we use cultural conversations and real life narratives, so real personal stories, to increase education around SRHR for youth? Thanks.
Thank you.
We have some here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nula. I'm originally from Ireland. I'm here representing, my name's Nula. I'm from Ireland originally. I'm here representing an organisation called Jimenez that works with young women in the north of Haiti, and it's using empowerment through the arts. I'm just interested in all of the discussion actually, but really I wanted to speak to this gentleman here about so in terms of hearing about the honour crimes in India, for me it seems absolutely horrific. And as well as, I think it's almost like there's an importance to have a two-pronged approach of empowering young people, but also what's being done to kind of lobby in terms of governments and what are they doing to stop this, because obviously it's been condoned, and what's happening here at CSW to kind of raise awareness of this, because it just seems horrendous.
And then
Thank you.
two more.
Maybe
Yeah.
two more?
Yeah.
Rachel from the United States. My question, it has to do with training young girls in the area of one of the things that happens to women is menstruation. And there's so much misunderstanding of it. When I was in high school, we said, oh, Uncle Charlie came to visit, you know. How stupid to be talking like that. But I went to a training on Friday, Days for Girls, and it talks about getting into communities that don't have sanitary pads and ways that girls can continue to go to school, and they can have their packs and go and safely care for us, and it's a wonderful way, an entree into getting education. So my question is, do you all work in your different areas with that, because the stigma that so often is attributed, you know, you're unclean, it's a taboo to even talk about having your period, and there's so much misunderstanding in so many different cultural contexts around the world. And so how do you do that? Have you connected with an organization like Days for Girls? They went through 28 different kinds of paths before they got the right one that would work in the situation of, you know, young girls. So that was my question.
Thank you.
One more.
Thank you very much. I am Intisar from Sudan. I am Associate Professor of Psychology. I'm really interested in the topic of education about sex subjects in schools. I want to say some principles. First of all, let us agree that to be consistent with the human rights, we should respect the choice of majority. If, say, for example, saying in Bangladesh, we have more than 85% of Muslims who all choose to be governed by Sharia laws or, say, Islamic rules. So this is their right. So how can we fit in with these subjects? Commonly speaking, Islam is not about against science or against scientific research results, but providing the right dose of sexual information in the right age is still a controversial issue, even in modern psychology or modern education. There is not one single absolute answer for that question.
So if you can just answer the question, it would be useful for us to answer.
Okay. Also, another, this is one issue, another for speaking about abortion. Abortion is another word for the girl or the woman that go for abortion. She is going for killing a human being that is growing inside the heart. I want to think about it that way. So we should look both ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you start?
Regarding this faith-based group, some of the members of our alliances are working with faith-based groups. So it's a recently formed one, but we have not have so much experience in working with this faith-based groups. So we are planning to look forward to work with the faith-based groups also. So the second point is about that reporting instances of honor killing and empowering adolescents. On the other side, we are also working with the human rights groups, filing cases against the human rights violations. So, but here also there is a difficulty. There are so many caste-based political groups in India and also in other regions. So they make it as a separate issue and make it as a political part. So it is also very difficult to work with them.
I will go quickly for the lady from Sudan. I'm a mother of 2 kids and I'm pregnant. I know that it's very hard for a lady to go, whatever she is, refugee or otherwise, to go for abortion. It's a very, very difficult decision. However, when you go to the costs and when you find kids who are asking yourself, why mom, I am here, living in such conditions with no father, without knowing either my father is my brother or not, she prefers to have had to decide about it before. What I said in my presentations, prevention, prevention, prevention. When we have lack of prevention, when we don't have emergency contraception, when you find in other countries that contraception is something forbidden because of religious fundamentalism, I'm so sorry. When you look to the costs on this lady who will choose, and sometimes she wants to keep this kid. Why? It's not because she loves her kids, only because it's a way to gain money. And this is the worst thing that could happen.
In the Philippines, to address the question of engagements with religious fundamentalists, well, Likhaan has tried to broaden its reach. It has very strong alliances with other faith-based groups, particularly the Protestant churches, very supportive. Also with no-faith groups, such as people who do not believe in advocating for any religion, but they're very, very supportive of reproductive health. Through the years that we have been fighting for the reproductive health law, there have been countless dialogues with Catholic bishops. And to the point that we already said, let's stop talking to them, because neither side wants to change their minds anyway. So there has been no lack of effort to dialogue with Catholic bishops and Catholic organizations. At the Cairo conference long ago, for instance, some of the delegates, in fact, were representatives of the Catholic lay people. So there are efforts to reach out and dialogue, but it must be a two-way street, and there must be openness also to listening to each other, and not just asking the other side to bow down to one side.
I'll focus quickly on the education SRHs. My little, very little, 4 years young Angel, my granddaughter, she's asking me why I'm like my mom, not like my dad. And that's the sexuality education. If we say, shut up, you don't need to know all of this. Or you want to say, when you will be grown up, you will know automatically. What do you want to say? So that is not standard in any way. So far we found. And nevertheless, you have to tell them slowly, slowly, at some point, so this is the sexuality and this is the extreme. It's, even you have to say, what is sex itself? At some point. So, if a girl gets, a boy gets puberty at the age of 12, 11, why not sexuality education at that age? Why you have to wait until they get class 9, 10 or grade 11, 12? Why? I don't understand. That's one thing. Regarding abortion, in many countries, including Bangladesh, especially under the country's communal system, they have abortion. But when the mother's life is risk. And interestingly, the decision should not be taken by the lady or the pregnant mom. Decision will come from the expert first, and then the parents, father of the brood. That's the problem. And what she is saying, unwanted pregnancy. As I said, my statistics, there are lots of unwanted pregnancy. What do you do with this kid and the coming, unborn kid? And you call them bastard, illegitimate child. It's your shame. You country, you govern the country, the government. You didn't change your law. You still call them illegitimate child, and you are not allowing them forever. That's double standard. That's the contradiction, and that's the against of human rights. That's what we say.
Thank you. I know this is an interesting discussion, but it's 12 and we need to wrap up. So thank you very much for being with us today, and we do hope that with all the evidence that you've heard on the ground, and these are real people who have worked in this field and they know how things are on the ground. It is very easy to be standing in a very ideological framework and telling everyone else how to deal with issues, but only when you go on the ground and you work and you see the everyday realities of life, you will know how it is and what needs to be done. So on that note, we also would like to invite you for another side event that Arrow is carrying out on Wednesday in the UN building. There are some flyers on the table for you to take, and there are also some publications on some evidence-based work that Arrow has done in the field of SRHR. Please feel free to take them. Thank you so much for being with us today.